Chicago Bears at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bucks favored by 3. Mentioned earlier the JT O'Sullivan video with the Bears and just breaking down their offense. It was just fascinating seeing some plays that just don't make any sense. There were some plays that were run by the Bears that don't make any sense.
Yes.
Including in the red zone. Like red zone plays that have no chance.
Not just don't make any sense, but you can't actually work out what they were. Like that was one of his points in one of these videos, is that if your offense is really bad, if you can't actually figure out what the play is, like you, literally from what everybody's doing, I have no idea what this is. You know, there was one play where the offensive line looked to be pass blocking, the tight end looked to be run blocking. There was the only guy running hard was the running back running like 80 yards to loop around the back of everybody and get in the back corner of the end zone. And then Justin Fields was running for his life trying to avoid an edge rusher. Like, literally, what is this? This is not an NFL play. And yet here we are. It's the red zone. It's what we've dialed up. What the hell is that?
The thing to me that stood out was not only that, but you have other plays. JT's funny. He's like, I hate sprint option, sprint left option, sprint right option, the famous Joe Montana play. He's like, I hate that. Every team runs it, in the tight red zone. But he's like, all right, if you're at least going to run this play, you have to have, after the first 2 options, you have to have a third option. And they don't have that. Like the Bears didn't have that. So 1 and 2 were taken away, and then Fields has to throw it away. There's other plays where it's like this play doesn't exist, like you said. Or the running back is just supposed to run a swing, and he runs it backwards. And so the attention to detail was the thing that stood out, and it was lacking. Now, all that said, Justin Fields deserves blame too, because they schemed up open plays, and he's not throwing it. He's still not throwing it. He's still not seeing it and throwing it on time. And so I set up all of that to say, here's the concern. Todd Bowles' defense is going to blitz like crazy, and Fields' vision and recognition and everything is going to be challenged as much this week as any other week this year. And that looks like a really bad matchup on paper for Justin Fields and this Bears offense. Todd Bowles, the blitz, the aggressiveness that they bring to the table, I think the Bears are going to really struggle moving the ball.
Yeah, one of the biggest takeaways from that game was that Chicago offensive line is still not good. And they were a real problem. I mean, even Luke Getsy, the Bears offensive coordinator, was sort of trying to explain some of that offense, and was saying they called a ton of like short lateral stuff because he basically didn't trust the offensive line. Like if you're saying that immediately, that's a pretty big red flag. Now you're going up against the Buccaneers defensive front that gave Minnesota a lot of problems up front. I mean, Vita Vea is so confusing to me because the plays where he wins, it's like he's the best defensive lineman in the NFL. Like he just ragdolls offensive linemen, throws them to the side, and sprints towards the quarterback. Like if you can do that ever, how can you not win at a better rate? And we've seen you can. Like there was a year where he graded in the 90s, looked like the best defensive lineman in the game, and then it just doesn't happen. You're like, what? I don't understand how you can be that dominant on one individual play, and it doesn't happen again for like 25 more. Why not? But like if he gets his hands on any of those interior linemen for Chicago, I mean, he can wreck the game, and they have some other players there as well.
On the other side for the Bears and then the Bucs, so the Bucs offensive line overall pretty solid against the Vikings. And then the Bears, the defensive line, we talked about the Packers pass protection. It was against the Bears, right? So it was the Bears who were unable to get any kind of pressure against the Packers. If that's the same thing again this week, as long as Baker Mayfield's not feeling phantom pressure, then they should be all right as well. There was a report, I think it was it Baker? Oh, no, Rashad White said that the Bucs had the Vikings defensive signals in the second half.
That'll help.
So they went from, the first half, the Bucs did not move the ball at all, other than that one pass. Mike Evans gets behind the defense. The second half, they had a couple sustained drives. So see how sustainable that is, having the other team's signals, which is perfectly legal, by the way. Like you can look at
it depends how you acquired them.
Assuming that we're just looking at them and not filming them from the field.
Right.
But yeah, that's just another interesting takeaway when you see the Bucs turn things around in the second half. How much was it kind of knowing what was happening with Brian Flores.
They need to find a way of irritating Baker before the game, you know?
Yeah, how do you
manufacture a slight.
call him short?
Right.
Yeah.
And look, you might have to do that internally, right? You might need to have somebody on the Bucs team that figures out how to piss Baker off every week so that you get the best version of Baker, because the opposition isn't always going to oblige.
So I think Tampa Bay, the thing that's going to keep them in games, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I think the reason why we talk about receivers so much is if those guys get open and create some big plays, it will offset the other weaknesses. And as long as Mayfield can hit them, he did it in week 1. As long as he can hit them, the Bucs are going to be way more competitive, I think, than maybe we anticipated.
Yeah, and their defense is still very talented. Like,
yes.
That's the area of the team in a post-Brady world that has the most talent remaining. I mean, the receivers are still very good, but the offensive line is definitely significantly worse than it used to be. But that defense still has a ton of talent, and some of it, they've added young players to it in recent years as well. That's a unit that should still be very good going up against the Chicago offense that looked lost in week 1.
So all that said, I'm not ready to write off the Bears. There was a point last year where the switch flipped a little bit. Like, it was the same personnel. I mean, it's a lot of the same personnel. But Fields got to be that dynamic runner, was better as a passer down the stretch. He has to be better. But there's still those games where Fields at any point can go off for 100 yards.
Sure.
And running the ball, even if it's not within structure or what you want. So that's the Bears' chance, I think. Fields got to play like a star. DJ Moore's got to play like a star. They got to figure out some kind of pass rush. So still a lot of question marks here for the Bears. But, yeah, very disappointing week 1.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay's looking down the barrel here at potential 2-0 start.
Right. The Bears are a very difficult team to predict in any given week because everything they do on offense is essentially reliant on Justin Fields being Superman, and that can go one of two ways. Like, if Lucas Van Ness doesn't manage to corral him, that's a touchdown. Like, that tackle, essentially, on the play that made no sense, that didn't exist, Fields scores a touchdown if Van Ness isn't able to snag him in the flat, right? And most players don't do that. Like, this is the sort of knife edge that or the Russian roulette that you play at all times when you're playing Justin Fields. If you can make that play, which is doable but difficult, the offense looks disastrous. If you can't, if you miss it just a little bit, Fields runs around somebody else and scores a touchdown, you look like an idiot, and nobody even notices that the play is one of the worst plays drawn up in NFL history. That's Justin Fields.
Maybe that's all they wanted, him to outrun the edge rusher.
Maybe. So, this Bucs defense, which is good, like, one guy screws up one play, Justin Fields scores a touchdown, and that happens 3 times in the game. It's like, the defense got wrecked by Justin Fields all day. Like, that can be 57 plays break their way and 3 don't, and it's like Fields owned the Tampa Bay defense. It's a real all or nothing approach when you're facing a guy like that.
Oh, I don't know, man. Maybe. I like Tampa Bay for a lot of reasons. I still don't trust them offensively, but I don't trust the Bears defensively either. So
yes,
I don't know.
That's a big issue.
And I think Tampa Bay on paper should be giving Fields and Chicago trouble, other than what you said if he breaks a couple big runs. Give me the Bucs by 3.
Ugh. Yeah, I don't like this one, but I will go also with the Bucs.
Over/under's 41. I could see a low-scoring game, and then I'll contradict myself and say, but how are the Bears going to keep somebody low-scoring? They're not. I mean, just because there's busted coverages in there. There's too many bad plays for Chicago.
Well, remember, we're also the opposing quarterback is Baker Mayfield.
Could be
eminently possible.
Anything can happen.
Yeah,
here.
To give them A, low scores, and B, turnovers.
Oh, it's Baker off of a good game too.
I know.
I might go Chicago. I'm going Chicago. I'm changing.
You're doing it.
But it's his home opener too.
That's not a good thing.
But nothing makes sense.
No.
Yeah, he won't be mad enough at home. He'll be too happy.